Welcome to Haggie Reads for You on Wolf Spirit Radio. Colleen, Haggie, reads children's stories for the wee ones up to the teens. She also reads books for grown-ups. Tune in, kick back, relax, and listen in. You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Hi everyone, it's Colleen, and tonight I am back with another one of Barbara Threecrow's books. This one's called Return of the Sacred Feminine and Teachings of the Grandmothers. This book is dedicated to all of the grandmothers in gratitude for their wisdom. It is time to return to the seeds of our beginning, to re-emerge with our tribal soul, and to dream of a new image of society, and to manifest our regeneration with spirit and the beauty of the natural world. Alrighty, I am back. The grandmothers who once danced and drummed in the sacred circles held the knowledge of women's sacred medicines. The grandmothers are calling us to remember. They have entered into our dreams, opening us to the secrets, the remembering of that which has been forgotten and all that has been lost. They say, now is the time to awaken to an inner knowing, to answer the call to return to the sacred circles of women. Return of the Sacred Feminine is a guide for those who are called to fulfill the prophecy and to seek to explore new levels of personal and spiritual development, and to uncover the ancient mysteries. The grandmothers hold the secrets that will lead us to gather our sacred medicines, to heal the sacred feminine, recall magic, and to enter the world of the supernatural, and to release the medicine woman within. Chapter 1. The Awakening. In the fall of 1989, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. To allay the fear that the diagnosis created, I would often take myself to a quiet place to pray and meditate. It was during this time that I experienced a powerful vision. As I focused upon the slow, steady flow of my breath, I felt myself sinking deeper into complete stillness, where I experienced the wonderful, silent place of inner peace. I was floating in complete darkness, detached from any physicality, as I held my inner vision into the expanding void, when suddenly a face appeared before me. I observed what seemed to be a grotesque mask that exhibited bulging eyes and a sharply defined nose that arched severely downward from a distinct and heavy ridge of eyebrows. Its tongue protruded from a gaping mouth, exhibiting a dramatic effect of forceful expulsion. Although astonished, I continued to concentrate on holding this strange apparition, when I received a clear message that directed me to fulfill the vision by searching in the nearby mountains for a particular stone. Although I was still not able to understand what had happened and why, the urge to enter into the mountains was so powerful that I immediately began my search. I entered upon a pathway at the base of the mountains, where in the past the indigenous people who had lived in the Hudson Valley revered the mountain as Manitou. Manitou translates as sacred place, or place of spirit. Before the Europeans arrived, the Nanticoke, along with many indigenous groups who had been members of the Greater Algonquin Federation, had occupied the land called Turtle Island, later known as Manhattan. Their territory reached into the Delaware region and Pennsylvania, the Hudson Valley and Upper New York State regions, even as far as Canada. During the European invasion, many tribes were forced from their homelands. Often whole communities were massacred. In some cases, devastating disease brought by the Europeans caused the death of many, and those who survived found it necessary to assimilate into other tribes. Unfortunately, over time, many of their sacred medicines and ceremonies were lost. Sometime during the 18th century, my ancestors left Europe to settle in the Delaware, Pennsylvania area, and during the 19th century, one of my ancestors on my grandmother's side married a Nanticoke. The day after my vision, I searched for several hours in the mountains of Manitou. As I found my way down a steep path, I was at once drawn to a large slide of blue stone that had fallen from a high ledge. I knew immediately that I would find what I was looking for. When I approached, I saw a large flat stone that amazingly appeared with a face I had seen in my vision. Back in my studio, I stood quietly, holding the stone, when suddenly I felt the room shift. All things around me disappeared, and I entered through what seemed to me to be a portal into another dimension. I then heard a distant voice, guiding me to begin what was to become a powerful and significant ritual. Using the colors black, red, yellow, and white, which I had seen in my vision, I outlined the eyes, sharp nose, and open mouth. At that time I was unaware of the significance of each color held for the indigenous people, representing the 4 sacred directions, as well as the 4 nations of humanity. As the day drifted into twilight, a short distance from my studio, the sun fell silently into the clove of Manitou. I became aware of voices chanting. Although unable to clearly discern the words, I felt compelled to sing along. Upon completing painting the stone, I felt peaceful and realized I had been given a powerful healing ceremony. After performing the ritual with the stone, I recalled how the spirits had for 2 years been requesting that I gather women together in a sacred circle. I had been reluctant to do this. My childhood was filled with experiences one might call mysteries. My grandmother, whose lineage is Nanticoke, told me about the little people and the fairies. She, along with my aunts and my own mother, would often call to the spirits. I was born with a caul, a delicate veil of skin covering the face that upon birth was removed by the attending doctors. This sign was known to bring the gift of vision, of inner knowing, and communication with the spirit realm. From the beginning, my family understood that I had been given this gift. During those 2 years when receiving the spirit's request, I was initially unsure of what I was being asked to do. I felt afraid and doubting myself. I resisted. Following this, I received another message from them, telling me that I would be diagnosed with breast cancer. Fortunately, I understood the power of the stone healing ritual, and saw how, due to my initial reluctance, I had been hit by a 2x4, breast cancer, a final message and challenge from Spirit, as a last-ditch effort to wake me up. I realized that fear was preventing me from fulfilling my original promise, and finally agreed to do what Spirit had been asking me to do. At the time I was given a message from Spirit, and told of the prophecy of the return of the sacred feminine and grandmother's ways. I realized the significance of women's return to the sacred circles, and the role women were to be playing during the coming times. Several years after I began the sacred medicine circles, I was guided to meet my spiritual teacher, Lakota holy man Wallace Black Elk. I studied with Wallace for many years. Today, continuing my spirit walk, I lead ceremony in the Lakota tradition. Well, night, Bonnie. Wish you could stay. But I know you're busy, and we just piled more work on you. Wow, can you believe they are lighting fireworks this evening? Chapter 2. Ancient Earthways and Goddess Cultures. The prophecy of the return of the sacred feminine and teachings of the grandmothers is an introduction and guide to ancient earthways and the practice of sacred ritual. When reinstated, it will prepare and assist those who have answered the call to reawaken and fulfill their original promise. History has revealed that the onset of the demise of the sacred earthways began during the height of the goddess cultures in Mesopotamia, whose name implies the place where the very dawn of human recorded history began. This became evident with the disappearance of temples, ritual, sacred signs and symbols that had once honored the great Earth Mother and the goddess culture that began in East Central Europe and had gradually spread to all of Central Europe. The downfall of the goddess culture was brought about by the development and increase in European religious ideology and patriarchal rule. When the image and the meaning of the goddess and all she stood for was destroyed, the goddess was so deeply planted in the psyche throughout several millennia that it could have only disappeared completely by their exterminating the female population. Although repressed and relegated to the unconscious, the goddess fortunately reappeared in later cultures, such as the Druid and indigenous cultures in the New World, which honored the goddess in all of her manifestations as sacred symbols, and some appearing in nature. The sacred web, as one significant symbol, was believed to contain a secret code that gives evidence of the great Earth Mother as a vital, living being. Today, these sacred symbols remain as access to a world view where Earth-centered cultures realize an immediate and essential connection to the great mystery. It is understood that something wonderful and stunning is contained in all of nature as that of a living, harmonious life force, and which is sustained through ritual and ceremony. Throughout early history, indigenous cultures continued to be led by the knowledge passed to them by their ancestors, honoring the goddess as the sacred mother, until it was once again destroyed by the patriarchy of Judeo-Christian rule. The indigenous people in the New World were finally conquered. Today, vivid evidence regarding first civilizations' ideology as gynocentric or goddess-based testifies to an advanced religion that evolved in Neolithic times as the basis for the development of civilization, and that over thousands of years led into a modern world. Numerous Neolithic excavations have yielded goddess figurines and symbols, which span a wide geographical area beyond the Near and Middle East. For instance, in India, large numbers of female figurines were found, representing a goddess or the great mother goddess, the Lady of Heaven. Goddess figurines have been found in European sites as far west as megalithic cultures, that built Stonehenge in Avebury in England. Although the goddess, as symbolizing the sacred feminine, has been the most persistent feature in the archaeological studies of ancient cultures throughout the world, a prejudice developed and is evident today. Those who were once revered as shamans, priestesses, and medicine women, and who followed the ancient ways of honoring the sacred feminine, continued to be ignored and deliberately hidden by anthropologists and archaeologists. At the time of my vision and subsequent healing of cancer, I was advised by Spirit of the importance of the coming times and earth changes that would soon be upon us. I was told of a prophecy of the return of the sacred feminine. I was advised of the importance of our return to the grandmother's teachings and the ways of the original people. This will be a deciding factor that will determine if humans achieve transcendence into the coming times, the 1,000 years of peace, or remain in a nightmare of fear, hatred, and greed. The ancient ones are calling us to recall our ancestral lineage of those women who, over time, have been guided to the sacred circle. We are being called to once again honor the sacred feminine. These are the women that I honor in the pages of the book. It follows the thread of the sacred feminine through generations of our grandmothers. Holding my own mother, Margaret Davis Ridgway, her mother, Louise Ridgway Davis, and my great-grandmother, Zuline Ridgway Nantichoke, in my thoughts, I now begin. I suggest that as you begin your own journey upon the sacred web, you recall the names of those who walked before you, as I have in the power of gratitude below. When women enter the sacred circle and create ritual through song and drumming, they are honoring these women of their lineage and all women throughout time, especially those who have walked the earth as healers, midwives, and medicine women. This is the beginning of gathering over medicines. This is the beginning of gathering our medicines once again and fulfilling the prophecy of the return of the sacred feminine. A prayer of gratitude. I give thanks to my great-grandmother Zuline. By her blood, my grandmother Louise was born. I give thanks to my grandmother Louise. By her blood, my mother Margaret was born. I give thanks to my mother Margaret. By her blood, I was born. Chapter 3. An Ancient Prophecy. The choices that humans have made over centuries have brought us to this time of transition. Now we are to meet our greatest challenge, which is to fulfill the prophecy that tells us of our entering the fifth hoop. 1,000 years of peace. We are each co-creators, being given a choice to return to the grandmother's ways, or to continue our disregard for the earth and all of her creatures. Disregard will prevent us from realizing harmony and peace. We must not be in fear, but look toward coming times as essential in order to gain enlightenment and bring an end to hatred, violence, and greed. Now is the time to choose to create the necessary changes and to realize that we are all related, each of us part of the sacred web. To begin to live our lives with compassion, forgiveness, and love. We are entering a time of great change. we are being given an opportunity to take responsibility, to fulfill the ancient prophecy, and realize the profound effect that our every word, act, and emotion has upon everything in existence. The Grandmother's Way is a sacred healing path that guides us toward deepening our relationship to Spirit by recalling sacred ways of living on the earth. It teaches us the importance of fulfilling the prophecy of the return of the sacred feminine. As we begin to align with the ancient teachings, we not only heal ourselves, but the violation against the sacred feminine, which has perpetrated devastating earth changes and greatly affected all of humanity. How are we to hold the light energies of peace and withstand the coming earth changes? What is the fifth hoop of peace and our transition into the 1,000 years of peace? How crucial is our fulfilling the prophecy of the return to the Grandmother's ways and the sacred feminine that would end centuries of patriarchal rule in regard to future generations? How are we to heal the impact of generations of disregard for the earth, of prejudice, war, intolerance, and false beliefs led by the Judeo-Christian religions and the abuses of corporations and our own governments? How can we achieve healing our spirit and fulfill our original promise? This book will explore these questions and more. To begin, it is recommended that you read my first book, Mending the Hoop, which are up in our archives. I think there are 10 parts to it. That's 10, generally 2-hour sessions. So make sure you check out the archives. Some of them are still up in the current public archives. The rest of them are back into the subscriber archives. So for just $5 a month, you can go back in there and download all of those and anything else you'd like, any or all, download and listen. So that's a pretty good deal, I think. And of course, you don't want to miss out on listening to Barbara's book, Mending the Hoop. So I recommend you do that. Okay, opening your heart. History has shown us that over time and throughout the world, humans have recorded visits by extraterrestrials or supernatural beings. These beings, often referred to as star beings, are believed by some indigenous cultures to be our relatives, and out of whom we ourselves may have originated. It is believed that early indigenous cultures throughout the world received teachings from these highly advanced beings who share their knowledge of the great mystery and celestial realm, and themselves became advanced societies on Earth. Sorry guys, I know you're hearing the pages turn and me crinkling and trying to straighten out the book a little bit. I've got it under the desk, hoping to muffle that sound a little bit. Sometimes it works, most times it doesn't. Today, scientists are still searching to understand the early cultures and their capabilities to build great temples, pyramids, and monolithic stone formations, such as those found throughout Europe and the New World. In 1994, I attended a gathering at Wounded Knee in South Dakota, where I met an indigenous elder from Peru. She explained that for centuries her people had gathered for ceremony at the Temple of the Moon at Machu Picchu, where over time they had been visited by extraterrestrials. During one of those visits, they were given a song that would open the hearts of the people. After learning the song, I returned home and received additional information regarding its significance. I was told that a stone had been placed across the heart to prepare us for the many lifetimes we humans would journey to Earth. The stone is a metaphor that represents a powerful energy whose purpose is containment and protection. It will block and prevent any interference that might affect one's personal journey, spiritual challenge, and significant experiences we have chosen to encounter during reincarnation. It is prophesied that a stone is to be removed as a precise and crucial time. Once the stone is removed, those who have made a commitment to return to Earth to become light workers and to take part in the great shift of humankind will find that at the appropriate time they will gain the ability to align themselves with the source of divine light. This alignment will empower them to at last fulfill the original promise. Although during this crucial time, there will be many who experience great challenges. Each of us will be given a choice, either to align with the divine light or the dark energies of fear, greed, and negativity. It is said that now is the time to remove the stone that shields the heart and begin our work. Below is the gift of song from the star beings given at Machu Picchu that will remove the stone and that will create the necessary shift and alignment that will open us to receive the light vibrations of the Divine One. Okay, guys, I am not prepared to sing this. I wish that I had started a bit, flipped through the book a little bit, because we do have a recording of Barbara singing this song. I'm not sure how many weeks ago, 3 or 4 maybe. And the heart-opening song, and I'm not even sure if I named it like Barbara Threecrow Sings or anything like that. I don't remember. I'll have to take a look, and maybe I'll do a little cut and paste and put that song that Barbara sings, because she sings it so beautifully, and guys, I sound like a frog. But it's way, way, Icha. Icha, way, way. Way, way, Icha. Icha, way, way. And I can still hear Barb singing it, but Icha muwe, Icha muwe, Icha muwe, way. I also had down what it meant exactly, but although I write a lot of notes, unfortunately I'm not really good at organizing all of those notes, so I have stacks and stacks of paper, and I apologize to that, and I also apologize to Barbara. And Barbara, if you're around and you're listening, and you'd like to come in at any time here, and I'm not going to ask you to sing unless you want to, but if you would like to just talk a little bit about what we're going into with this book, that'd be awesome. And if not, that's okay too, because this is kind of like, so I'm so spur of the moment. So, I'll go on. And if Barbara calls in, I'll bring her in. So, here we go. The elder's wish is that we teach the heart-opening song to the children and join together with others in a circle to sing and to align ourselves with the vibrational energy of the divine, to allow our hearts to be opened and to activate the healing energy of the love we receive, which will then spiral outward from each of us, the source, and will embrace everything and everyone. The Earth People and the Grandmother's Ways. Early cultures throughout the world recognized the earth as a living being and referred to the earth as the mother. Not only had they recognized the earth as a sentient being, they believed that a living spirit existed within everything. Therefore, they lived as conscious caretakers and guardians of the earth and all of her creatures. The Earth People understood the impact that each generation would have upon future generations, either through disregard of the earth, their mother, or by their living in harmony with all of nature. Before the European Inquisition and the devastating formula drawn from within the paranoia of the Christian Church that had spread to the New World, the role of women had been determined by nature. This describes one whose life is ordered by spiritual law, which provided the freedom to choose one's own manner of spiritual communion, allowing one the ability to develop natural gifts, some of which for centuries brought honor to women as practicing midwives, shamans, visionaries, healers, and herbalists. The sacred ways of women derived from the goddess cultures, until the devastating formula of the Inquisition put an end to their ancient practices. The Inquisition that began with the Holy Church in Europe, which succeeded over the course of hundreds of years in eliminating the earthways, spread throughout Europe as a witch hunt against those whose lifestyle and spiritual beliefs did not align with Christianity. Most of those targeted were women, who had learned the ways of the goddess from their mothers and grandmothers. It was Pope Innocent who, in 1484, made the accusation that women had aligned with the devil in a conspiracy against the Holy Church. Fear that the devil possessed those who lived by the old ways and who practiced healing arts escalated out of control, and in the end, millions of women and men were tortured and murdered and accused of practicing witchcraft. Many were accused just because they were old. The term witch may have derived from the pre-Christian Wicca and Druid traditions and paganism practiced by early European cultures, whose beliefs and ceremonies emphasized honoring the Great Mother, the earth, and all of her elements. In the New World, before the advent of the European arrival, many indigenous societies were matriarchal. This describes power and property as held by women and handed down through matrilineal descent. Indigenous women held positions as chiefs, medicine women, and renowned leaders, herbalists, and healers. There were women peacekeepers who determined the advantage or disadvantage of sending their young men to war. Women's opinion in all affairs concerning their people was greatly respected. In the New World, European conquerors introduced the ways of the Christian Church, which brought devastating changes upon indigenous culture and severely impacted their spiritual practices and belief, in many cases having a dramatic effect regarding the role of the indigenous women. To emphasize this, when the conquerors called the native leaders for land treaty councils, they refused women the right to take part in making important decisions for their people. And following this, history shows how a devastated and once proud and dedicated people, whose ceremonies, beliefs, and knowledge regarding the sacred feminine and earthways began a slow demise. What? And I'm having hot flashes, guys. Thought those were over, but apparently they still return once again to remind me that I'm growing into my crone years. Moon cycle and the sacred feminine. The alienation of women that filtered into the lives of the indigenous people began to influence long-held practices that had once honored the sacred feminine. Specifically, ceremonies regarding the natural occurrence of the monthly cycle or menstrual cycle, also referred to as the moon time. Wow, isn't it funny that I'm having these flashes just as we're entering this chapter? The moon time is a woman's natural blood cycle that was once considered sacred and known to be a natural purification. Therefore, there was never a need for women to enter into a purification of the Inipi, sweat lodge. Therefore, there was never a need for women to enter into the, well, now see what I did. Start over. Therefore, there was never a need for women to enter into the purification of the Inipi, sweat lodge, which in earlier times was a ceremony where men would go to purify themselves. During the women's moon time, she was to enter the moon lodge to rest, take care of herself, and take part in ceremony, communing with natural spirits, and receive teachings from elder women. In the modern world, there are many changes occurring where women and men together enter the Inipi to pray, and there remains a conscious effort to maintain a harmonious balance of male and female energies as women enter the purification lodge first and move clockwise to sit in the south. The men follow and sit in the north. The moon lodge, as is the Inipi, is constructed of saplings and resembles an upturned basket and is set apart from the community. Spending time in the moon lodge was not looked upon as something negative or shameful, nor was the feminine blood thought to be unclean. In fact, men and women both understood the sacred power a woman held during her moon cycle, and this power was not taken lightly, but was respected. Certainly a woman was never thought of as impure. With the arrival of the Europeans, who had not only brought disease and alcohol to the New World, came also the mistreatment and disrespect of indigenous women. The revered place they held within their societies suffered. In some cases, this influence had remained, and we find that today there is confusion and taboos regarding the role of women. This, unfortunately, has affected the ability of some to recall the true meaning of this moon cycle. In ancient times, women understood the power of feminine blood, yet throughout history the complex beliefs regarding feminine blood has been misinterpreted and misunderstood, where now we find that no longer is a woman's moon time revered as sacred nor seen as a gift given by the Creator which brings life. But with some, it's believed that menstrual blood will contaminate sacred items or somehow disrupt ceremony, or even causes bad things to occur. Unfortunately, there are women who have come to disrespect themselves during this sacred time. Often they refer to their natural cycle in a disparaging way as the curse. In most indigenous cultures throughout the world, special ceremonies are still held to honor a young girl's first moon cycle. Still, the negative implications regarding women's natural cycle has led to the practice of banning women to the moon lodge during ceremony. Instead of viewing the moon lodge as a significant and sacred place, this practice indicates just the opposite. As an example which shows the continuing disrespect and even fear of the power held by women, a native man who attended a traditional Inipi ceremony, who was known to be a very good singer of the ceremonial songs, found that he was having difficulty. He complained that he was unable to sing because there must have been a woman in the lodge who was on her moon cycle. But the medicine man who was leading the ceremony later explained that when the spirits had entered the Inipi, they had informed him that the singer, who was complaining and blaming a woman, had in fact been out drinking the night before. But it's so much easier to blame the woman. That was my word and not Barbara's, sorry. Sure is. And it's dirty, it's nasty, it's yuck, Now, I know I'm going to add this in, and it sounds kind of yucky, but I have read that bloody tampons, and I know you guys aren't going to want to hear this. I know it. And if you're not already gone, this might make you kind of leave because you guys just don't want to handle that. That bloody tampons and pads are very, very, what's the word I want? Nutritional if buried in the garden. Has anybody else heard that? That the minerals from the blood kind of fertilizes the crops. The indigenous people believe that spirits are sensitive to the low vibration of alcohol, especially where the sacred chanupa, the sacred pipe, is concerned. Another example took place when I observed a young man who had an angry nature to begin with, as he placed the heated sacred stones in the center of the Inipi in an aggressive and careless manner, when suddenly one of the stones rolled away and hit his foot, which caused him a severe burn. After the ceremony, I overheard him comment that there must have been a woman on her moon, and that was the reason that he got injured. One can understand, then, how perpetrating these negative beliefs would create disrespect against the sacred feminine. Concerning this, I spoke with a native elder about certain taboos regarding women's moontime and ceremony. He explained their belief that the energy or power that results from the natural purification of women, and how the power could possibly confuse the spirits, who would ordinarily be called upon by a medicine person. He then described a way of using the plant medicine sage in a sacred manner that contains this power, which would allow a woman's participation. She would take the plant medicine sage and rub it over herself, her arms, her legs, her belly, and then make a ball out of the sage and place it over her belly underneath her garment. After the ceremony, this was to be placed in the sacred fire. For this purpose, the sage is used to contain the powerful energy which rises during the moon cycle. When goddess cultures were prevalent, the blood of women's moontime was known to be sacred and to contain great power, and was significant during fertility rites. Women have been given the gift of the miracle of life. All of life is created from the blood of the moontime. Within the womb there begins a natural building of power, or energy, prior to and during her moon cycle. Before she actually bleeds is a time when a woman can become pregnant. If this does not occur, the culminating power of the blood cycle then releases as a purification until the next cycle, a simple and natural process. We can see how when women during menstruation are banned from participating in a ceremony, and when it's believed that she is a contaminator and causes bad things to happen, how such beliefs only continue the disrespect against mothers, grandmothers, and daughters. Certainly, the delicate negative behavior and fear that surround the natural power of women will affect one's thinking and behavior in regards to the sacred feminine. Centuries of violence against women have added to the disrespect of the sacred feminine throughout history. If we are to realize peace, we must heal the deep wound that women carry regarding these issues. In order that we may return to harmony and balance, women will also need to recognize the sacred feminine. We are in a time of great change and opportunity for a transition to shift away from a dominator society into a partnership society. It is up to women to begin to change their own behavior regarding their power and see themselves as an essential part in the divine plan, and to honor the moon cycle as natural and sacred. Hopefully, others will in time begin to respect the sacred feminine. Sacred ceremony. Honoring women's moon time. This most beautiful time, when a woman begins her purification as the moon blood courses through her womb, is the time that she can take part in sacred ceremony in honor of herself, her mother, grandmothers, and those generations of women who walked the earth before her. Such ancient ceremonies reach back in time, when the goddess and the Great Mother was held in high esteem. The ceremonies and rituals of women were significant in that women not only honored themselves as sacred, but honored the Mother Earth as a vital living being. This is the way of women, an ancient and true way. During her moon cycle, a woman enters into prayer and gratitude, calling upon the sacred feminine which resides within all elements. Above all, women are part of the life-giving force of the earth, and those who have been given the gift which gives life to others. Women together can gather in the moon lodge or find a place which is hidden and quiet, a place somewhere on the earth made special for this sacred time. Or they may go in silence alone to share themselves with those ancestors and elementals who reside in nature. A shell from the ocean can be used in ceremony to burn the sacred plant medicine sage, whose smoke carries our prayers to the Great Spirit. All of the waters which course powerfully throughout the world is reversed. No, is revered as the Mother Earth's own blood. A tradition used for cleansing and calming is the fragrant sweetgrass braid, which is the hair of the mother braided by indigenous women to be used to call the ancestors and bring sweetness and healing. A special blanket used for ceremony can be wrapped around herself, and she can take time to sit in prayer or drum and let her heart open with song. No matter if one believes they cannot carry a tune. In ancient times, women sang knowing this to be a prayer, and how the ancestors loved to hear the people sing. The moon cycle is a time for women to rest, to take time to nurture themselves, and together tell stories. And if there is an elder woman, a grandmother, invite her to share her wisdom. Our daughters can benefit from this sacred time by taking part in ceremony and honoring themselves in the sacred feminine and the beautiful and powerful gift the Creator has given women. In today's world, It is difficult to comprehend the indigenous concept of the universe and the enormous depth of feeling and understanding these cultures had in regards to ritual and reverence for all of life, and the importance of sustaining mutuality and interdependence between the sexes. Indeed, their understanding of the human relationship to the holy earth, which to them embodied a sentient being, is to some unfathomable. Cellular memory reconnects us to the ancient ways, and when we were called to reconnect with the grandmother's earth ways, we are asked to remember, to manifest, honor, and recognize our natural abilities and spiritual connection as sacred gifts. It is time to begin our practice of sacred ritual and ceremony and develop intuitive and instinctual knowledge that will once again link us to the grandmothers, the sacred mother, and those of the spiritual realm. Spiritual development reclaims truth and one's own power, realigning us with that which has been out of balance for centuries. The grandmothers bring us once again into alignment with the sacred feminine, where harmony, respect, and peace fulfill the ancient prophecy of mending the hoop and entering the fifth hoop of peace. As women begin to heal, they will, without fear, begin to recall ancient feminine knowledge, thus bringing about the fulfillment of their life's purpose. We are not greater than those that share the Mother Earth with us, and we should not be so arrogant as to think that our destroying the rainforests and polluting the waters and stressing the Earth's natural resources has no lasting or dire effect. We must not fail to recognize how humanity's continuing violence and disrespect against the sacred feminine is in fact the cause of escalating spiritual sickness throughout the world. During the height of the ancient earth cultures, indigenous men and women together honored the earth and sacred feminine through ritual, celebration, and ceremony. As European invaders carried the assault against the Mother Earth and sacred feminine to the New World, the ancient ways of the indigenous people were nearly destroyed. Specifically, many sacred sites where, for centuries, ceremony had been held and which had kept all things in harmony were violated. In order to create harmony and peace in our world once again, returning to the sacred ways of the ancestors will bring about the necessary balance and healing needed between the masculine and the feminine. Chapter 4. The Sacred Web. The Great Mystery, as universal law, dictates that we uphold the earth people's knowledge that all things are as one, that we humans are all related as brothers and sisters, relatives to all of creation, that all humans must take responsibility for their actions, which greatly impacts the earth, her creatures, and all of humanity. Most of all, we must realize that the earth is a vital, sentient being. Grandmother Spider has spun the delicate web that threads the life force throughout the world and on into the universe. We each exist upon and are part of this intricate web, affecting and therefore being affected by the life force of the web. The love that one spirit has for all creation weaves its thread throughout the world through the power of prayer, sacred ceremony, and by our having compassion and gratitude. We must begin to recognize that each human is brother or sister to all of us, that we are children of one Father, one Mother, the creators of all that is. Separation, prejudice, and hatred have created repercussions throughout the sacred web as disharmony, war, greed, hopelessness, fear, and revenge that is spread like wildfire out of control. We must take responsibility for creating our own reality, either choosing to align ourselves with the negative or the positive, in order to heal generations of the compounded wounding of humanity's spirit and enter into the fifth hoop of peace. We must recognize the existence of the divine spirit within the Mother Earth, all creatures, plants, all of humanity, the waters, winged ones, even the creeper crawlers. Above all, we must strive to live a spiritually conscious life, having trust and faith in the sacredness of all humanity, and our own essential link with the web of life and the Creator's divine plan. Returning to the grandmother's ways will not only activate a positive difference throughout the world, it will bring a deeper understanding of humanity's relationship to the great mystery. By our living according to the sacred ways, we heal our deepest wounds, discover and develop our natural gifts, begin to raise our consciousness, and begin to mend the hoop. A prophecy. Throughout the world, early cultures recognized the importance of respecting the Mother Earth and all creatures. For generations, ceremonies and prayers were held in sacred places. Some of those represented the liver, navel, blood, and the heart of the mother. As each of the indigenous cultures were conquered, they and their ancestors regard as sacred sites have been forbidden. Today, indigenous cultures are still struggling for their right to hold ceremony at designated sacred places. The Mother Earth is continually assaulted by clear-cutting forests. Our air quality is dramatically affected, our vital water sources increasingly polluted, and many plant species and the creatures essential to keeping nature in balance are becoming extinct. The earth is a living being, a life force that is vital to all humanity. It is imperative that we awaken to the devastating impact that humans have upon the sacred earth, or the sacred web and earth's natural resources. If we continue in this manner, a significant increase of disease and sickness of the mind, body, and spirit will accelerate. The prophecy of the return of the sacred feminine in the grandmother's way describes the significant role of women during these coming times, and how their healing themselves will powerfully impact generations of violence against the sacred feminine. Women must gain courage and stand strong against continued violence and disrespect against themselves, their daughters, and the earth, our mother. If we fail, we continue instead to align with the destructive path that has consumed humanity for generations. We can no longer ignore the increasing crisis that humanity over time has created. If we dream of a different world, we must take responsibility to bring about peace and harmony by returning to the earth ways and teachings of the grandmothers, and to gather our medicines once again, to renew the ancient practices that had once honored the sacred feminine. Women are being called to return to the sacred circle, to sing and drum together, to share their stories, and to honor the sacred feminine through ritual and ceremony. Spending time in nature can heal our spirits. We are being called to journey to the mountains, to enter the woods, and begin a spiritual practice to deepen our relationship with those spirits whose home we enter into, to pray and to ask for healing and help for the land, the winged ones, waters, creepy crawlers, the green nations and the standing ones, and for all of humanity. Each prayer, each song and ceremony activates powerful vibrations and healing energies, which create a positive impact upon the sacred web. When we open ourselves to the life force within all of nature, we are renewing our spirit and strengthening our connection with all that is sacred. Our spirits heal, and as we become empowered and realize our true nature, our true purpose. Great Spirit, I choose to align myself with the divine light of peace and healing. I live my life each day as a light of love and peace, having no doubt that peace begins with me. Spiritual challenge, the fifth hoop of peace. Humans have created life out of balance. Negativity is prevalent as fear, greed, injustice, violence, and disrespect for the feminine and Mother Earth and all her creatures has accelerated. Those who have chosen to return as light workers are embarking upon a spiritual path, which is an immediate impact upon the sacred web as a positive, energetic vibration. When we determine that we are ready to do everything in our power to answer the grandmother's call, and to stand up and speak our truth, and to hold ourselves accountable to the original promise, to begin living as spiritually conscious humans, our light will undoubtedly shine brighter. Our vibration will increase, and we may very well become a threat to the survival of the dark forces. No matter, Vanessa, you just cracked me up with, we'll just smack them with all the blessings, like water on the Wicked Witch of Oz. That cracked me up, girl. No matter the spiritual path one chooses, we will always meet great challenges. One becomes a target for those entities who wish to maintain control by keeping us out of balance, from achieving enlightenment and prevent our fulfilling our original purpose. The dark force behaves like a moth that is naturally drawn to any magnifying light and will attempt to disrupt one's spiritual course. On the other hand, the spirits of light, those beings which emanate a higher vibration, will also be alerted and drawn by our desire to achieve enlightenment. Both of these will then inundate the seeker, each creating challenges. The dark force brings fear and doubt, jealousy and hatred in its attempt to discourage our quest, as opposed to the spirits of light who support our quest by sending challenges that build courage, strength, compassion, faith, forgiveness, and endurance in support of our withstanding the onslaught of negativity. The key to achieving our goal is having trust and faith in the power of love against ever-increasing hatred and fear, as well as having compassion and forgiveness towards others, and reverence for the earth and all of her creatures. The elders of indigenous cultures advise us to take up courage, to let our light shine bright, to become a power of love against fear and doubt. I believe at this crucial time, many are being asked to remove the stone, to begin to release the energy that has been placed across the heart eons ago, that which had been necessary until the appropriate time, to begin to align ourselves with the Divine One, the omnipresent Sacred One, the Creator of all life. The prophecies tell us that we are entering the fifth hoop of peace, and now is the appropriate time to achieve personal healing, to strive to gain enlightenment, so that we may take part in mending the hoop and enter into a new time of enlightenment. The star beings who are teachers and guides to many are in alignment with and know of the Sacred One. Therefore, clearly, they are our relatives. It is the Sacred One who directs the vibration of light and love toward earth for those who have chosen to align themselves in order to fulfill their promise as light workers. Many of us have traveled to earth many lifetimes from other star systems such as the Pleiades, which is one source from which the relatives known as the star beings originate. Indigenous people throughout the world hold on oral history that describes their journey from a celestial source. There are others whose prophecies tell of human error regarding the earth's natural resources and how ultimately our carelessness will destroy those resources, leaving those who survive little choice but to leave the earth. Those who have returned at this time are light workers and are readying themselves to shift into the fifth hoop, thousands of years of peace. The prophecies of the fifth hoop raises the question of what the final outcome will be. Who will enter into the fifth world hoop of peace? Is the fifth hoop of peace to be found in a far galaxy or a parallel realm? Or will the earth itself become, for those who transition the earth changes, the place where humankind will continue on into 1,000 years of peace? If this is so, we need to prepare ourselves in order to hold the vision of peace. When the time comes, we will meet many challenges and make many decisions. This will be an opportunity for humanity to at last live together in harmony. We will need to prepare to meet obstacles in the form of those who wish to remain under the dominator rule, and whose disregard of the sacred feminine and earth ways invalidates the balance needed between the masculine and the feminine. We can only surmise that we are moving toward a time of great change and unfolding into the world that we as co-creators have chosen. We undoubtedly will be challenged to sustain ourselves within the circle of compassion, love, forgiveness, and peace. Chapter 5. Spiritual Consciousness. A Lakota holy man spoke with reverence regarding the sacred chanupa, or sacred pipe. He spoke of the unknown power of this sacred implement given the people by Peskawiyan, White Buffalo Calf Pipe Woman. When the time comes, he said, those who have stood behind the sacred chanupa and walk a sacred path will move through all that the earth changes bring. His words and the messages given by other indigenous elders have helped me to understand the meaning and the importance of our living a spiritual life. If we choose a life of reverence, compassion, and forgiveness, and care of the Mother Earth in all relations, we will transcend the earth changes into the fifth world of peace. The Elder's message, "Now is the time," relates to our taking part in mending the sacred hoop, and reminds us to remove the stone that blocks our heart. By honoring our original agreement and choosing to live a life as a spiritually conscious human, we will transcend the coming times. This is not only essential, but prophetic, in that it brings us into a state of higher consciousness with spiritual wisdom, which will raise our vibration, which in turn creates a positive effect upon the sacred web. Developing spiritual consciousness is a way to increase our awareness and deepen our relationship to the sacred. It also helps us acquire trust and faith in the divine plan that we are each a part of. This supports our progress towards using, to the best of our ability, our natural gifts for the betterment of all, to at last succeed in fulfilling our original promise. Deepening our relationship with Spirit will release us from earthbound negative programming and our reliance on others and their beliefs, bringing enlightenment which is necessary to meet the coming earth changes. Generations of negative programming have perpetrated fear, hatred, and doubt that, instead of our aligning with the sacred, push us deeper into the realm of darkness. Seeking spiritual consciousness allows us to receive ancient knowledge that relates to past lives and helps us to rededicate ourselves to the sacred feminine and our original promise of creating a peaceful existence. To begin to reinstate our true and natural gifts, and that which brings spiritual enlightenment, we must first heal generations of wounding, false beliefs, fear, greed, and arrogance, and that which feeds the negative force and holds us captive. The message I received during my healing vision guided me to call women into a sacred circle to gather their medicines once again. I was told that women were to become a stabilizer and to hold the alignment with the sacred feminine and the vibrations of healing and harmony as chaos accelerates. As mothers, sisters, aunts, and grandmothers, we must walk in truth. We must set the pace for others by saying no to violence, disrespect, and disregard of women, children, and the Earth Mother, and all of her creatures, in order to effect a positive change. The stabilizers, while holding the higher vibration of love and compassion, will help many during the times of escalating chaos and the earth changes. As women choose to align with the Divine One and ancient ways of the grandmothers, they will meet their greatest spiritual challenge, which is to bring about that which has been lost and forgotten. As we are to move closer to our goal, we are more than ever subject to a powerful resistance in the form of lethargy, where we find ourselves overcome with physical slowness, mental dullness, weariness, and even laziness. Resistance is a powerful energy that attacks our desire to fulfill our original promise and gain enlightenment. It often appears through drugs and alcohol, as well as illness, even as a serious disease. Each of these is distracting us from our spiritual course. Resistance can even tempt us to watch too much TV, or instead of having communion with Spirit, perhaps through prayer, for instance, we fall asleep. To some, the resistance seems as though we are mired in quicksand, unable to move. We experience hopelessness and often give up. We have been dreaming, sleepwalking, and we're being led away from our spiritual work, and we need to awaken. It's helpful to pay attention and to be alert and aware when Spirit calls us, since each request that spirits make Spirit activates at even more powerful resistance. Following the teachings of the grandmothers brings us into harmony and balance, and empowers us to not be swayed or fearful of the path that is set before us. The sacred medicine given to women is the gift of life and peacekeepers. Women are mothers and sisters, aunts and grandmothers. Women are healers, compassionate and naturally intuitive. The teachings of the grandmothers bring us first full circle. Now is the time to recall how women in ancient times danced together. They were drummers, singing the praises of the sacred feminine and the Great Mother, who honored the natural way of women, that of having respect for all of life, all of nature, and the Mother Earth. Given a choice, women would not send their children to war. Unfortunately, there are many women who have lost touch with their sacredness, and have turned away from their original purpose, that of peacekeepers. They are blind to the aggression and the abuses that we have lived for centuries under a dominator rule. There are those whose memories of persecution in the past cause them to feel threatened and unable to stand in their own truth. They fear speaking out against war and the violation of the earth and the repercussions for the coming generations. It seems that the ancient knowledge of the grandmother's way may have been lost from their hearts forever. More than ever, we see how the increase in violence and hatred has fueled a negative force throughout the world. Like a wildfire out of control, the abuse of the Mother Earth and her natural resources, the persecution, abuse, and murder of women under religious rule in ancient and medieval times, and even continuing today, have relegated the grandmother's ways into oblivion. As it was long ago, these antediluvian beliefs fuel hatred and fear against those whose spiritual practices align with the sacred earth ways, now believed to be devil worship. It is said that the earth herself is experiencing a great sorrow, becoming increasingly ill. It would make sense, then, that all that live upon the earth are affected. To realize peace and harmony, we must awaken from the hypnotic dream that we have lived for generations. We must realize the significance of the prophecies that tell us of the return of the sacred feminine. Women are being called to set the pace, saying no to abuse, to war, to aggression, and harm against the creatures, our relatives, the waters, the Mother Earth, our life force, and no to the disrespect of women and the children who are our future. Chapter 6. A Disturbing History. Throughout time, we humans have had a natural curiosity and interest in the mysteries that surround us, some having spent a lifetime searching for answers pertaining to life, death, and the possibility of an afterlife. Recently, there's been an increased interest in developing expertise in and exploring the esoteric psychic arts, the supernatural, Wicca, and the spiritual practices of the ancient Druid, and the spiritual ways of indigenous cultures. Yet, for centuries, these practices were considered unacceptable, certainly outside the sphere of physical science, and especially by those who hold to antediluvian Christian beliefs. In the past, as it is often in today's society, there are those who remain misinformed, and others who live in fear of anything attributed to supernatural phenomenon. Persuasive methods were often used against those who it was believed were possessed by supernatural beings. The methods used as a cure or to dispel a supposed evil were often quite severe and often led to the death of the accused. History has shown us that there has always been a powerful select few whose fear and resistance against those who desired to maintain their own unique spiritual beliefs should be punished and or ostracized from society. Having the freedom to explore the supernatural world, to develop one's own natural abilities, and ultimately to determine one's own spirituality, even if dissimilar to that which is prescribed by some, would have prevented a select few from accomplishing their desire to control the masses. Following Christian beliefs, those who lived according to the ancient ways were thought to be possessed by a devil. These distorted beliefs fueled a witch hunt and systematic devastation brought about by the Inquisition that began in Europe and continued into the New World. Christianity and Satan. Early Christian faith was based on the subjugation of the masses, and to facilitate this, it was deemed necessary by the ruling bishops to create a perceived enemy. Not only was this to be an enemy whose potential power could destroy the church, but one which also threatened and terrified humans. One who would claim the souls of those who did not offer obedience to the church. The eventual Christian image of Satan emerged in Roman imperial times. Never was Satan or the Antichrist so often preached to strike terror and subjugation, either mentioned in Genesis, the Bible's Old Testament, or the New Testament. Satan, popularly conceived as a demonic character, was an invention, a fabulous myth of the evangelical era. Historic records show that in the year 591, that it was Pope Gregory the First who first made the announcement concerning the devil's characteristics. And soon it was established this Satan, or the devil, was known to be hoofed and horned. His bodily characteristics over time became even more exaggerated by the addition of a tail and bat's wings. Until the Roman Christian era, the term Satan had no sinister connotation. In fact, Satans, plural, though rarely mentioned in the Old Testament, are generally portrayed as obedient servants of God, who perform specific duties. Satans were seen as members of the heavenly court, or angels, if you will, who carried out God's desires. Prophecy of the fifth hoop of peace. There are many prophecies that tell of the earth changes that will undoubtedly bring about a great shift. What is prophesied by the ancient indigenous cultures is difficult to understand, yet some have taken it upon themselves to interpret the wisdom of these ancient ones as an Armageddon predicted to mark the end of the world that leads to the day of judgment. This fifth hoop, or fifth world of peace, prophesies a time of great celebration and death of an old cycle that has been in place for hundreds of years, and an opportunity to transcend those lower vibrations of negativity and rebirth ourselves, and pass through this level to gain enlightenment. The fifth world of peace is a return to the way of light and beauty, and the wisdom that has remained hidden for centuries. It is necessary that as co-creators and through the collective consciousness, that humans heal that which has held them captive in order to transcend the fourth hoop, which is our present world, where humans have created life out of balance and where chaos is now escalating, and enter into the fifth hoop, the fifth world of peace. There may be those who choose to leave the earth during the escalating earth changes for the purpose of returning in the future, or they may choose to remain. Nevertheless, they will be challenged according to their ability to gain spiritual enlightenment. If enlightenment is not realized, the disregard against the earth and her natural resources and the despair experienced by those who have separated themselves from the sacred ways will continue, and they will not enter the fifth world. I hope you're enjoying this book of Barbara's, Return of the Sacred Feminine, and the teachings of the grandmothers. That's it for tonight. Thank y'all for being here, and I thank Barbara for writing this book and sharing it with us, allowing me to read it live for all of you. Much love to everyone. Good night. See y'all later.